Good evening. My name is Guion Foreman, and I am president of the Chicago Police Board, and I am calling the board's December 16th public meeting to order. To protect the public's health in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting is taking place remotely. Pursuant to the Illinois Open Meetings Act, I have determined that holding this meeting in person is not practical or prudent. The city of Chicago remains subject to the governor's disaster proclamation due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and the disease continues to be a threat, especially to the unvaccinated and people with certain health conditions. We are therefore having this meeting remotely this month. This meeting is open to the public via video and audio conference and is being carried live by CAN TV. Members of the public are on mute in order to reduce background noise and disruptions. We have a court reporter making a transcript of this meeting. In addition to the police board members, we have several city officials here with us this evening. I will begin by taking attendance so it is clear who is participating in this meeting. Please say here after I say your name. Police Board Vice President, Paula Wolf.
Here.
Board Member Stephen Block.
Here.
Board Member Nanette Dorley. You're on mute, Nanette.
Here.
Thank you. Board Member Michael Eady.
Here.
Board Member Steve Flores.
Here.
Board Member Jorge Montez.
Here.
Board Member Andrea Zopp.
Here.
Superintendent of Police David Brown.
Here.
Interim Chief Administrator of Civilian Office of Police Accountability Andrea Kirsten.
Here.
Acting Deputy Inspector General for Public Safety Nathaniel Wackman.
Here.
Acting Chief of the Chicago Police Department's Bureau of Internal Affairs Yolanda Talley.
Here.
I don't think First Deputy is here. First Deputy will be joining us soon. Fred Meelan, Deputy Chief of the Chicago Police Department's Bureau of Patrol.
Here.
I don't think I said that exactly. Yeah, but maybe I did. Chief of Chicago Police Department's Bureau of Detectives, Brendan Denahan.
Here.
General Counsel to the Superintendent, Dana O'Malley.
Here.
And Executive Director of the Police Board, Max Caproni.
Here.
We'd like to start by welcoming our new police board member, Stephen Block, to his first meeting. The City Council approved Mayor Lightfoot's appointment of Mr. Block yesterday. Mr. Block comes to the board with extensive experience as a federal and state prosecutor here in Chicago and is currently a partner at the law firm of Thompson Hine. Stephen, thank you so much for your service to the city and your assistance to the board. We're looking forward to working with you. We will now proceed to the items on the meeting agenda. We will have time at the end of the meeting for public comments. Once again, members of the public are currently on mute in order to reduce background noise and disruptions. When we get to the public comment portion of the meeting, we will unmute each speaker. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the board's November 18th regular public meeting?
So moved, Paula Wolf.
Is there a second?
Member Flores, I second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. The schedule of the board's monthly public meetings for 2022 have been set and will be available on the board's website, chicago.gov/policeboard. Our next regular public meeting will be held Thursday, January 20th at 7:30 p.m. Whether this will be an in-person meeting or a remote meeting will be determined closer to the meeting date. Is there a motion to close a series of executive sessions for the purposes of considering personnel matters and litigation as authorized by sections 2C1, 3, 4, and 11 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act?
So moved, Paula Wolf.
Board Member Flores, I second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. Earlier today, the board, as required by the Illinois Open Meetings Act, met and considered minutes and recordings of all past closed meetings to determine whether the need for confidentiality still exists. The board members unanimously agreed that it continues to be necessary to keep confidential the recordings of its past closed meetings and portions of the minutes. As previously announced, earlier this year, the board began making publicly available portions of its closed meeting minutes. These minutes are included in the Blue Book that is posted on the board's website in advance of each public meeting. A report of disciplinary actions taken by the board during the previous month has been made available on the board's website. There are 2 announcements of disciplinary rulings on the agenda this evening. Board member Montez and Dooley will make these announcements. Jorge.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Pursuant to Section 2-78-130 of the Municipal Code of Chicago, I considered one matter on which the Chief Administrator of the Civilian Office of Police Accountability and the Superintendent of Police did not agree regarding the discipline of a police officer. In request for review number 21-16, the Chief Administrator recommended that Police Officer Michael Mancha be discharged from the police department for rule violations stemming from a vehicle pursuit. The superintendent objected to the chief administrator's recommendation. The superintendent recommended this officer Mancha be suspended for 180 days. After considering this matter, it is my opinion that the superintendent did not meet the burden of overcoming chief administrator's recommendation for discipline. Based on the facts and circumstances of this matter, an evidentiary hearing before the police board is necessary to determine whether the officer violated any of the police department's rules of conduct, and if so, the appropriate disciplinary action. A copy of the written opinion will be posted on the board website as required by the municipal code.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nanette.
Let me just say this. I unmute it and then it just automatically mutes on its own. I don't touch it anymore. So I don't know what, I think my iPad is possessed. So
Or not necessarily. If we hear some background noise, sometimes we may say mute everyone. So it's a
okay, I haven't
possibility.
touched it since I got on and it keeps muting me. Okay, so let's do this before I get muted again.
All
Okay.
right.
Good evening, everyone. Pursuant to Section 2-78-130 of the Municipal Code of Chicago, I considered one matter on which the Chief Administrator of the Civilian Office of Police Accountability and the Superintendent of Police did not agree regarding the discipline of a sergeant. In request for review number 21-17, the Chief Administrator recommended that Sergeant Juan Perez be discharged from the Chicago Police Department for rule violations stemming from a search and seizure of a vehicle. The superintendent objected to the chief administrator's recommendation. The superintendent disagreed with one or more finding and recommended that Sergeant Perez be suspended for 180 days. After considering this matter, it is my opinion that the superintendent met the burden of overcoming the chief administrator's recommendation for discipline. Therefore, superintendent's response shall be implemented. A copy of the written opinion will be posted on the board's website as required by the municipal code. Thank you.
Thank you. The superintendent has requested the board's permission to solicit funds to offset the cost of hosting the department's annual award ceremony and luncheon in May 2022. The most recent awards luncheon was held in November, and the board received a report of funds raised and spent. Is there a motion to approve the superintendent's request, subject to the board's receiving an accounting of funds raised and spent following the May 2022 event?
I am pleased on behalf of the board to accept the superintendent's motion. Call the roll.
Is there a second?
Board Member Flores, I second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Superintendent, I'll turn it over for you for your report.
Thank you, President Foreman. I'm going to start with an update on our COVID vaccination portal entries for our department, as well as the percentage of members of our department who have reported that they are vaccinated. So as of today, 93%, actually 93.5% of our members of our department have submitted their vaccination information into the portal. That's 93.59%. Of that number, 74% of our members have reported that they are vaccinated. So that's quite an accomplishment. We started out, as you know, very controversial with even entering the information into the portal, let alone the percentage of the vaccination status. So we encouraged by almost full compliance with the vaccine mandate and the high percentage of officers who are vaccinated. With that, I'll just continue with my comments. On Monday of this past week, I testified at the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing here in Chicago under Senator Durbin to discuss reducing gun violence and combating gun trafficking in Chicago. Too many lives have been lost to gun violence, and we are doing everything we can as police officers to prevent it from happening in the first place. We are on pace to recover more than 12,000 guns that are illegally possessed by the end of the year. Each gun recovery, as you know, is a potential deadly force encounter for our officers and also a life saved. As part of our efforts to take these weapons off the streets, we launched the Gun Investigations Team in July of this year to disrupt the flow of guns into our city. This team investigates gun trafficking cases and works closely with our prosecutorial partners to address the pipeline of weapons and to hold those responsible and accountable. Our detectives have been working around the clock to seek justice for those who have been hurt by senseless gun violence. This includes victims who have been killed or injured by gun violence, and all the families who continue to deal with the ripple effects just one bullet can start in our communities. Our homicide detectives have cleared 374 homicide cases so far this year. That's the most homicide cases cleared in a single year in 19 years. And across our city, in the 5 police areas, our clearance rates range from 42% to 68%. We've also added resources to our vehicular hijacking task force. That's our carjacking task force, which has doubled in size since the beginning of the year. And so far this year, we've made 1,375 vehicular hijacking related arrests. 688 of those 1,375 arrests were for criminal trespass to vehicle. That's being in a stolen vehicle. 383 of those 1,375 arrests are for possessing a stolen vehicle. And 305 of those 1,375 arrests are for vehicular hijacking. Unfortunately, over half of our offenders that we've arrested this year are juvenile, really young people ranging from 10 to 16, over half. And while we've doubled down on these law enforcement efforts, we have also doubled down on our public safety strategies aimed at improving community trust and resolving the underlying issues that lead to crime. For example, we have expanded our narcotics arrest diversion program, which is expanded to all 22 districts. This makes it the largest diversion program of its kind in the country. We've also expanded our neighborhood policing initiative, it's called NPI program, to 10 of the most violent districts in the city. We've also welcomed in our new LGBTQ plus religious, homeless, and immigrant liaisons. So that's 3 separate liaison groups for each of the 5 areas across the city. The LGBTQ plus, the religious, the homeless, and the immigrant liaisons are all part of the commitment to advocate for and build relationships with our city's historically marginalized communities. Each of these programs separately roles played by our true efforts at reform, changing the culture of the Chicago Police Department. In the fourth monitoring period, IMR4, for our consent decree, we were assessed for compliance by the independent monitoring team that detailed the progress of our department. And we've made the most significant reform that we have since we've been in the consent decree, over 52% compliance with the paragraphs assessed. Obviously, but none of this would be possible, as we all know, without the dedication and extraordinary bravery and courage of the men and women of the Chicago Police Department. They do everything they can to include risking their lives to protect the people of this beautiful city every single day and night. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Superintendent. Board members, any questions for Superintendent? Thank you, Sue. Chief Administrator, you would like to give your report.
Thank you, President Foreman. For the updates for the Civilian Office of Police Accountability in this last month, I'd like to kind of give a statistical overview of some of the cases that came in and out of our agency. So in the last month, of the month of November, we received 475 complaints and or notifications. Of those, 110 of them remain under COPA jurisdiction. Of those cases, 58% our single highest category of cases involved improper search or seizure allegations. So that continues to be the top number of cases that we get are in that category. In the month of November, we received 2 officer-involved shooting notifications, and we also concluded 4 officer-involved shooting investigations. Of all of the investigations that were concluded in the month of November, 47% of them included some sort of sustained finding. In the month of November, we also had 1 video release under the city's video transparency policy. We were also out in the community at Marshall Square, their resource network, for their quarterly meeting hosted by Latinos Progresando. And then we also have some of our policies, internal policies that govern the way that COPA does its investigations, are up for public comment on our website at chicagocopa.org. And those policies address some pretty critical areas of our work, and we invite and welcome public comment on those policies. It's important to make sure that we're engaging the public in this process because it's an essential portion of how we try to achieve greater consent decree compliance. So those specific policies, there's 4 of them that are up right now for public comment, are our sexual misconduct investigations policy. And this outlines how we approach that work and how we do so in an interagency dynamic that involves both CPD as well as the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. We also have a policy on our conflict of interest and recusal protocols, as well as our transparency initiatives, specifically a policy that is geared towards our video release. One of the things that COPA is probably most known for is the release of officer-involved shooting videos and other high-profile videos. So this is the policy that sort of governs how we implement the city's requirement that we make those releases. And then lastly, there's a policy that governs how we screen candidates for employment, particularly those with law enforcement background. And so I invite anyone that's interested to weigh in and comment publicly on those, so please do so. And then lastly, I'd like to take my time to talk a little bit about a recent officer-involved shooting. I think everyone has a pretty good sense at this point that when there are officer-involved shootings, COPA, part of what we do is we have to respond to the scene. And when we respond to the scene and when we're investigating those cases, we have access as civilians to policing in a way that most regular people do not have. We have kind of a front row seat to how crime scenes are managed, how policing takes place in those critical incidents. We often see the tension and the emotion that's involved in those quick decision-making initiatives that have to happen day in and day out in those incidents. And then additionally, we have to review a lot of body-worn camera footage and other sources of information and interview witnesses to gain a full picture of what happens in any one of those cases. And as most of us are aware, COPA tends to get a lot of publicity. When we close big misconduct investigations, we're often tasked with looking at sometimes where policing misses the mark. But in our review of all of the information that leads into these investigations, we also see really exemplary examples of policing. And the most recent officer-involved shooting, which was a fatality that we responded to on December 9th, the review of body-worn camera footage involving the responding officers to that incident actually showed one such example. There is a field training officer named Larry Branch Jr. assigned to the 25th District. who was called to that scene and had to interact with family that were grieving, had to do so while maintaining the integrity of a crime scene, searching for critical evidence. And he managed to do all of those things while demonstrating a truly exemplary level of empathy and professionalism. I don't think COPA often gets recognized for lifting up officers that do their job in the way our city needs them to. And there are many examples of that we encounter in our daily work. So COPA will be sending a formal notice, or a formal letter rather, to the superintendent and to command staff supervising field training officer Larry Branch. But I wanted to say something publicly because I wanted to make sure that people heard that COPA also pays attention when we see officers getting it right. And I wanted to make sure to take this opportunity to lift up that officer. And not only him as an individual, but also the recognition that he's been placed, someone of that caliber has been placed in the position of a field training officer. And for those that don't know, that means he's tasked with teaching, on the job teaching and training of our new probationary police officers. So having someone like that in a position to teach our incoming officers how to police, as I said, with empathy and professionalism, I think is a true mark of our department's reform efforts in that regard. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to share. That's all for my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Chief, so first, Superintendent, Chief, thank you so much for bringing up Field Training Officer Larry Branch. That's the kind of excellence that we should be highlighting. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Then I just want to reiterate that on chicagocopa.org, we have the ability to comment on 4 different policies: sexual misconduct, conflict of interest, recusal, video release, and employment screening. So these are important. This is an opportunity for members of the public to weigh in on policies that impact all of us. So would highly recommend that that we spread the word and try to make sure that your feedback is heard. I will now call upon members of the public who signed up in advance to speak. To make sure we have time to hear from all speakers, there is a 2-minute time limit on comments. Our first speaker, Jacques Stefanik.
Okay, thank you, President Foreman, and thank you, members of the Chicago Police Board, for giving me time to speak. I am actually a member of the Chicago Youth Council for Police Accountability. We are a group of 12 youth members across the city of Chicago. We range from high school students, college graduates, basically people from the ages from 16 to 24. And we represent youth who are concerned about police issues, specifically in the city of Chicago. And we actually did a formal introduction back in the summer. And we will be now more present in the police board meetings, kind of giving everyone updates on what we've been doing and what we plan to do. So I would like to give a quick refresher of our mission. The mission of the Chicago Youth Council for Police Accountability, Police Accountability, is to spark dialogue about police issues in Chicago, empowering young people across the city to engage in the work of the police board and to amplify young people's voices that have been historically underrepresented and underutilized. So in terms of updates, the council members, we actually visited the Chicago Police Department headquarters a few weeks ago, more like 2 weeks ago from this day. And unfortunately, the building was closed. One of the officers actually said that it's closed on certain days. So we actually instead walked over to District 1 and we wanted to actually speak to some police officers and supervisors about how we can be more involved. And we ended up kind of running into some more roadblocks that certain police officers aren't able to speak on certain things when it comes to media relations because of policies that exist. So we are kind of finding our ways that how we can be more involved in the police network in Chicago and how we can respect the policies that exist. But we do plan to have more appearances at other district stations across the city to kind of question, or not more question, but kind of be more involved in the police community and try to see how we can build that bridge between the youth of Chicago and the Chicago Police Department and members of the Chicago Police Board and public safety of the city. And in terms of policies, in terms of any plans that we have, we're actually going to be conducting community outreach in preparation for our panel series event, which is ironically a month from this day and January 16th. And the panel series event will be including members of the youth leaders, community leaders, police officers, police leaders such as y'all, and other leaders across the city. And the goal of this panel is to create a panel where we can all come together, where we can all talk to each other, and where we can have a better bridge of connection between the Chicago Police Department, members of the community, and more importantly to us, the members of the youth community that have feel like that we have been impacted and underrepresented in these conversations. So we would love for members of the Chicago Police Board to be more involved in our activities. And in terms of next steps, we would love for y'all to continue to reach out to us and to see how we can build this bridge between our two communities, between youth communities and between the Chicago Police Department and police members of the city. So thank you, President Former, for giving me this opportunity to speak. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Mr. Max. He's been helping us a lot, and we'll be in contact. So
I'm gonna start off with one thing. So I really appreciate the efforts that you guys are putting forth in getting young people involved. But when you do that, let's be efficient with it, right? Let's not have another situation where you go to a building on a day that is closed. I want the energy to be used in a positive way, not to just be wasted, right? So this is a place where you guys can reach out to us. Perhaps we can help coordinate. This is a time when you can reach out to COPA, reach out and coordinate these things in a little bit of a different kind of way, right? So this is some of the things we don't expect you to know right away. Allow us to be somebody to kind of help guide you through some of those kinds of things. So
yeah, much appreciated, President Foreman. I really appreciate that. We'll use that to our advantage.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. Our next speaker, Nikita Brown. If you're on a call, we're trying something new for the first time today, everyone. Normally speakers would only call in. This time we're trying Zoom as well. So bear with us. This is our first time trying this level of technology. Nikita Brown. You have the ability to unmute yourself? No. Max, maybe I have the ability to do it. Let me see. No, I can't do it either, Max.
I think it might be, this is Max Caproni. I think it might be Jasmine with the police board who's in charge of unmuting.
Okay.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much, President Foreman. As mentioned, my name is Nikita Brown. Krista Noel from the Women's All Points Bulletin was kind enough to give me her time. As some of you guys may know, I was involved in an incident with CPD Officer Diker, end of August 28th to be specific. To give you a little bit of background, I was pretty much walking my dog. And as I was actively leaving and also being told to leave by the officer, I was attacked, viciously attacked, I might say, again, while complying and walking my dog. This is something that has stayed with me. This is something that has shaken me. This is something where I am fearful of walking outside my house. I have been a resident of Lincoln Park for about 7 years. I now see that the alderman sent a letter saying that they're going to increase police presence in my neighborhood, and I now don't want to leave my house for fear of what might happen or who might say what to what capacity. Will I be arrested again? Officer Diker has had several infractions prior, one of them being out of state, where he was, I think, charged with aggravated assault, 3 charges of aggravated assault, as well as resisting arrest. He's also had 24 separate allegations of misconduct against him. The city has already paid out and settled a suit that a minority has filed a couple years ago for, again, wrongful arrest. So what I'm asking for today is for Officer Diker to be terminated, simply put, based on the procedures and policies that you guys have in place. I'm sure that they're, let me pause. Sorry. Superintendent Brown, I'm aware that COPA has closed the investigation and their report and recommendations have been provided to you. I'm asking that Officer Diker be terminated not only for his attack on me, but for his decades worth of misconduct while wearing the uniform, allowing Officer Diker to remain on the force despite his history of misconduct, and his videotaped attack on me will not only be an insult to the residents of this city, but it would be an insult to all men and women that actually perform their duties with professionalism and integrity. I also want to take a moment to say thank you to Sergeant Gibson. He was very kind the night that he came by and took my statement and actually made sure that I calmed down enough before he left. I'm also asking For this to not happen to anybody else, it shouldn't happen to any woman. It shouldn't happen regardless of color, creed, or anything. It should not happen. We should feel safe and protected by law enforcement, not violated or fearful that this could mean death. Nobody should be fearful of walking outside and seeing officers around. We should be more fearful of the rise of crime in the city, but not the officers. I ask you, members of the board, as an officer, parent, friend, human, is this someone that deserves the right or honor to call himself an officer? Is this somebody that you are proud to call your brother, your colleague? And that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Thank you for speaking. Thank you for your courage coming here today. I know it took a lot. Normally, I would ask the superintendent to respond, but since it's open, I'm going to hold off on doing that right now. But thank you very much for showing up here today and speaking out. And hopefully we have an answer on this relatively soon. Our next speaker, Grace Patino.
Good evening. My name is Grace Patino. I'm here as a member of the Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. I'm also here standing in solidarity with Women's All Point Bulletin and with Nikita Brown. I just want to say that you just did an amazing job, and I want to echo that we want Bruce Steicher fired. That man should not be on the force, or definitely not allowed to carry a gun, additionally, after he attacked Ms. Brown. Also, we would like COPA's report to be released to the public, because we feel that this is an issue of a lack of transparency around this matter. And speaking of transparency, I also want to thank whoever sent us the FOIA request information that we requested. That was FOIA request number P700894-102821. We were asking for information around sexual assault from police officers. However, we would like to, Women's All Point Bulletin and some members of the Chicago Alliance would like to request a meeting with the police superintendent and FOIA chief administrator to review the information that was provided. The information is pretty difficult to interpret. I think that it wasn't, it's missing some information, and we just want to talk about how to read what was sent to us. We all also want to mention that I know this will probably have to be another FOIA request, but we do still want those narratives of the survivors whose cases of sexual assault were that we requested. I believe you all have our contact information already from us signing up for public comment, but if you'd like to get my email or my phone number again, I'm happy to provide it to try and set some type of meeting up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Patino. I don't know if I'm directing this question at the right place. Ms. O'Malley, is this something that I can ask you to try to help us direct to the right place for them to get some clarity on understanding the information that they received?
Yeah, absolutely. We can take a look at it and see if we can clarify any of the issues. We are, obviously limited by what the FOIA law allows us to reveal, especially when we're dealing with victims of sexual assault and sexual violence. But we can certainly look at that.
Okay, so I'm going to ask Max to connect you and Ms. Patino, and you can direct them to the right place to get the information that they're seeking if it's available. Our next speaker, Hankyo Song.
Hello, my name is Hankyo Song with the Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression and the Women's All Points Bulletin. First of all, I'd like to express my full support for Ms. Nikita Brown, and I commend her for her powerful testimony. It's an outrage that this even happened, and Bruce Steicher should indeed be terminated and even charged with aggravated battery. But that's not the reason why I signed up to speak today. The reason I'm here is to raise an issue with the Chicago Police Department's inability to prevent domestic violence perpetrated by CPD officers. I'm enraged to learn of the murder of Miss Andress Wolford. An off-duty Chicago cop, Pierre Tyler, has been charged with the homicide of Miss Wolford, who has been found dead with a fatal gunshot wound to her head following an argument with Officer Tyler. Miss Wolford had planned to break up with him, according to family and police. This is the most dangerous time in domestic violence cases where the women try to leave a relationship. Miss Wolford had filed a complaint previously against the officer in the past, alleging domestic violence. And while charges weren't filed, CPD didn't do anything to prevent further occurrences of domestic violence by Officer Tyler. I believe that CPD should have taken his gun away after his known prior domestic dispute. The Lautenberg Amendment makes it a felony for those convicted of domestic violence misdemeanors, but police officers seem to be exempt from this law, with a culture of silence and intimidation preventing domestic violence complaints to be properly charged and addressed. Complaints of police domestic abuse are notoriously underreported, underinvestigated, and undercharged. CPD needs to take accountability to properly investigate and prevent domestic violence perpetrated by its officers, even if charges aren't filed. I wish Miss Wolford's family my condolences and hope that they get justice for her death. I will be here to demand justice for Miss Wolford and for CPD to address its violence against women problem.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker, Jennifer Edwards.
Good evening, Superintendent Brown and Police Board. We are calling in tonight to ask for more police resources for the 3rd, 6th, and 4th districts. Within a 2-week span of time, we've experienced 10 shootings, 5 homicides, 3 aggravated batteries with a handgun, 7 vehicle hijacking incidents, 17 motor vehicle thefts, and 15 robberies in just one district. We are respectfully asking for the same complement as other Chicago areas are receiving, who have a lower amount of incidents as compared to our districts. We hope to get the full complement of new police recruits finishing training, as stated, of 20 new officers per district, as our districts have been historically training districts. We would like permanent foot posts in our highest crime hotspot areas. We have 10 in our area. We are also asking for dedicated cars at these hotspots as a deterrent and more cameras and license plate readers. Unlike other areas of Chicago, we don't have private police groups to help. SSAs are not functional as police in our areas, and we're not able to afford to pay to hire off-duty police officers to secure our area. Yet we have been on the ground with CPD patrolling our gas stations, deterring carjacking with our Operation Neighborhood Safety Group, and walking with CPD and the Cook County Sheriff for a year. As stated above, we request more help for the above serious reasons. We also thank you for the promotion of Keith Milmine, one of our favorites, to the commander of 4th District, but he too is going to need more resources. A community organizer and a cap sergeant would also help. Ms. Tiffany Smith asked for more strategy because of the numerous shootings in the 6th District and increased police presence to fill the community organizer position. Lastly, we have been attending the South Shore Academy domestic violence training as community members and adding our own personal improv skits to make it a little bit more fun. We hope our improv skits make the training more personal, but also we enforce the idea that we don't hate the police, but support the police and introduce different types of officers as domestic violence, CIP, and affinity officers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Edwards. You had a lot of points there. Superintendent, would you like to, anything you want to respond? I know there's a lot of points, but she has some very specific things about some very specific areas.
Right. Yeah, we agree on all the points made, more resources for each of the districts she's identified. We've already identified those districts as getting the new recruits that's coming off training. We've also identified areas that need more pod video cameras in those districts and license plate readers in those districts as well. And so, again, we know those districts need more resources and we're working to get them as quickly as we can. And a shameless plug, we are hiring. It's an $80,000 a year job to be a Chicago police officer once you complete your training after 18 months, and a 100% reimbursement for your college education, 100%. So shameless plug there. We need more recruits, and we are hiring. Thank you.
Superintendent, I'm sorry to throw a hornet's nest, but I just have a question now. So the whole city, violent crimes is up right now. So the whole city feels like they need more resources, and you have limited resources. So what is that process? How do you figure out where to put those different sets of resources?
So we have district patrol officers who are assigned to the districts, and then we have area officers, and then we have citywide officers. So we have 3 buckets of officers. One bucket is in the district, and when we have emerging crime, like the caller identified, we move area officers to supplement those district officers. If for whatever reason we need more than the area officers, we have citywide officers that we can send to those areas to be additional resources until we get the crime under control. And yes, you are right. Every area of town is asking for more cops, more officers. And so we're being very nimble and flexible in putting out all of the emerging crime issues that we're seeing. It's the holiday shopping season, so we're seeing more and more thefts, smash and grabs. So we are deploying our resources, and we're listening to the community to make those determinations.
Okay, thank you very much. Next speaker, Ms. Flora Suttle. If you can press *6, Ms. Suttle. *6. Well, wait. You're on Zoom. So Jasmine, I need you to do the unmute situation. Bear with us. Bear with us all. All right, you're unmuted, Ms. Suttle.
Good evening. My name is Flora Suttle. I'm still advocating for justice for my son, Derek Suttle, who was fatally shot by an off-duty male Black Chicago police officer on February 11, 2012. As many of you know, I've been speaking before this board before the consent decree went into effect in 2019. I've been trying to find out what is the process for reopening a closed investigation. And I read an article online, ABC 7 Eyewitness News, and it said in 2004, a young man by the name of David Koshman died after being punched by the former Mayor Daley's nephew. And I'm gonna quote what this article says. The police responded immediately with a wholesale cover-up. Homicide files went missing. Witnesses were not interviewed, and police reports were changed to blame David Koshman. David's mother, Nancy Koshman, fought for justice for her son for almost 10 years. 10 years will be February for me. In 2012, the former mayor's nephew, R.J. Benenko, was indicted and charged with involuntary manslaughter, which he pleaded guilty to in 2014, and he was sentenced to 60 days in jail. That was a closed investigation that was reopened. So there is something to reopen a case. Now, my question again is for the superintendent. What is the process or procedure for me? I'm a citizen, I'm a mother, and I'm a working member of this community to request that you reopen this closed case, this closed investigation. RD numbers, Henry Victor, 154-525, and Henry Victor, 153-745. This case needs to be reviewed with the state's attorney's office for appropriate criminal charges against that officer. Now, Superintendent Brown.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Ms. Suttle. We're at time. Superintendent, okay. Superintendent, would you like to respond?
Sure. I'm just going to talk generically and not about this specifically case. Her ask of me was, what steps do do we take to reopen an investigation, a criminal investigation? And I know I have Dana O'Malley on to help me out. I believe this case has gone through a process, but it was a investigation that was done and completed. The state's attorney, I believe, has a role in looking at all cases for review. And then I think COPA can look at cases for review if it was police-involved shooting. So, Dana, do you have anything to add? Because that's the whole process. It's the police department looking at it. Every case we refer to the state's attorney. State's attorney reviews. If it's a police-involved shooting, the COPA actually is in charge of conducting that investigation. But ultimately, all those steps were taken. There are no additional outside steps that can be taken that I'm aware of. Dana, you can chime in if you see any additional things I didn't cover.
I believe, sir, in this case, also the Inspector General may have looked at it as well. I believe Deborah Witzberg has commented on this at prior police board meetings. But everything else you said is correct, sir.
So the only thing I missed saying was the Inspector General could review as well. And Dana, just remind me, do you know if this specific case was reviewed by the Inspector General or not?
I believe Deborah Witzberg has spoken on this case, but I can certainly confirm and get back to Max and confirm that for him.
Okay, thank you very much. I would appreciate that. Thank you, Ms. Suttle. Next speaker, Anthony Crawford. If you can try *6.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, it was saying I had still been muted. I'll be brief. I want to thank everybody for letting us be here. Thank you, Superintendent. I could tell a story of how I was falsely arrested by one of your sergeants, and she instructed her officers to make up evidence against me. I won't go into details, but I can also tell a story about how I was walking down 83rd and King Drive, found $5 on the ground, and my brother and I, at the age of 45, found ourselves surrounded by 5 youths who began to kick us and beat us and stomp us in our skulls. And we did manage to get away. So with both those stories, I still want to say that I'm a person that says we need more officers. I understand that there are training issues and there are some bad players, but even with that, those of us that are at least in the 3rd district over here, and as Jennifer Everett said, we need more officers. We fully support you all. I don't know what we need to do to get more officers. And we also need to make a bigger push to make sure that after you make good arrests, that when it gets to the next stage, that there's good prosecution going on. And that's what I want to present. Thank you for your time.
Our final speaker, Mr. Robert Moore. Mr. Moore, if you could press *6 on one of your phones. I see that you're logged in on 2 different devices. So if you can press *6 on one of them. *6. Mr. Moore. Yes, sir.
Hello, I just unmuted.
Yeah, well, you have to turn the volume down. You have to turn the volume.
Hang up the other one.
Okay, that'll work.
Okay, all right?
Yes.
Hello? Okay, here's the situation.
Wait, hold on
More
one second,
double
please.
standard.
Mr. Moore, hold on one second. Jasmine, can you please restart the clock? Okay, Mr. Moore, please proceed.
Complaining more about the double standards, one-way streets, and sacred cows, which is the ordinary customary activity of this entity. The first 3 persons today got to speak for 14 minutes, okay? I get cut off in 120 seconds. That causes me to have to wait at the end of this, and now this place is closed, and I barely got to speak at all. So I'm asking now to be called first, okay, rather than last. This document is being posted at JN21-15, PROTCTR.tripod.com/ISMACHIPOLBDMT121621.html. Is my agenda at this juncture. It's a terrible thing to fall into the hands of the living God. Queen Innocentibus parsit, innocentibus punit. For those who have shown mercy need to have the fear of judgment. Be not overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. The document RJM is reading into the public record has just been posted at the URL with Fluent Cure. RJM, Robert J. Moore, is committed on behalf of posterity and regeneracy and innocence. No one's abandoning you to little children in Chicago. No, I'm not abandoning you. City of Chicago charter revocation within the revocation of the charter of the state of Illinois, the anathemization of the anomaly United States by Indian nations whose currency is not controlled directly or via various intermediaries by the Committee of the 300. Freezing of any and all components of all pension funds of malefaction perpetrators above the DHH poverty line. Licenses, certificates, prerogatives of individuals revoked. Removal of various malefactors from circulation amongst general population via requirements of the Fourth Commandment and the Fourth Amendment, satisfying seizures, criminal prosecutions, incarcerations, convictions, incapacitation, and punishment. Restoration of status quo anti-victim, status quo anti-victims of City of Chicago crimes. Notice to Sardo, Hammond, Sergeant Keene, Pontificora, Vivalvos, Rojas, Rayan, Sergeant Deneen, Toulis, Detectives Johnson, Gary, Toto, Roman, Chicago Police Board President Carney, Lightfoot, now Foreman, several deputy superintendents, President Superintendent D. Brown. RJM has never and does not now disavow some share of responsibility for the various malefactions perpetrated by the individuals listed herein and several others whose names RJM would need memory recollection to recall at this juncture. The matter is simply that foreseeable future, RGM understands that RGM remains obliged to keep the pursuit of the monitoring and identification of the Committee of the 300 and the highest level slave master class activity and whatever obstruction that RJM can provide to the attempted consummation of the genocide of the Goyim, presently still in progress and in code red, as it really has been for 30 years now, since 7 years after readiness exercise 84 has been implemented, and thus for a temporary period of time. Hello?
I need you to
Hello?
wrap up. I need you to wrap up. I didn't want to just mute you. So if you would like to conclude, I'm going to allow you to conclude.
Okay, I'll just finish with this paragraph and the rest of it's posted online because RJM is convinced that what will be shown at the Judgment Day, Apocalypse 1:7, City of Chicago is, in Ephesians 5:8, work of darkness. It's a crocodile pit covered with a placid surface, and it is dangerous. And children must understand that they must distrust nominal government entities because it's.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Moore. At this time, all members of the public who signed up to speak has been called. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn and wish everybody a happy and healthy holiday and a happy new year. Paula Wolf.
Board Member Flores, I second that motion.
President Foreman, I would like to confirm that motion in a bit before I call for the vote. Again, wishing everyone safety and peace this holiday. And also just a cautionary tale. I let my guard down and I contracted COVID. And so I want to remind everyone, this is a good time for us to go back to the level of vigilance that we had when we first learned of what COVID-19 was. Go back to wearing your mask all the time, washing your hands. This is about protecting yourself and your loved ones, your neighbors. And so I think it's very important that you can use me as a good example. I slipped up, went to a holiday party, and I'm suffering the consequences right now. I don't want that to happen to you guys. So I'm just wishing everyone safety and peace for this holiday season. All in favor?
You take care of yourself and get rest, Mr. President.
I shall. All in favor of the motion that is on the floor, please say aye.
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 Happy holidays, everyone. Feel better.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.